This has been one of the most insane weeks of my life. On Monday, I was invited to the presidential palace, the Elysee, here in Paris. By Wednesday, we crossed 100,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, something that I have been wanting to happen for years, which is insane. Thank you so much, and welcome to everybody who just found me. And then yesterday, we taught our first social media masterclass to try and support some local businesses here in Paris. And it really feels like everything in my life has actually been leading up to this moment. Hi, buddy. You want to come up here? Okay, don't spill my coffee. Whoa. Let me explain.
For some reason, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to live in France. And I didn't know what that meant. I was a kid. It took me a long time to figure this out, but when I was a child, I just had it in my head for whatever reason that that's where I was gonna go, to the point that I didn't study Spanish in middle school because I knew I was gonna go to France. So I had to learn French, which they only taught in high school. And so why would I waste my time on Spanish? This is how I know that basically, as long as I can remember, I've wanted to live in France. The other thing that I've always loved doing ever since I can remember, and ever since I had the ability, was making videos. When I was I guess 9 years old is probably when I made my first video. It was Jason and the Argonauts. It was a school project that I made with my friends. And the way that I made it was I had my buddy Jeff's VHS camcorder, and I would literally take the shot, stop it, run home, watch it really quick on my TV, make sure it was good, then cue it up to where I wanted to cut, take it out, put it back in the camera, run back, and get the next shot. It was probably the most cardio-intensive editing workflow I've ever had in my life, and I'm so grateful I don't have to do that anymore. I never had my own video camera growing up. When I was a kid, we were, for lack of a better word, I don't know that we were poor, but my parents sure did treat us like we were poor, and it actually leads into this entire story. But I never had a camera growing up, which is pretty normal for my generation. They were rare things that only some families had, and so I was lucky enough to have a couple of friends around that I could snag them from occasionally. But better was when I got to school and I could borrow cameras. So naturally, I turned every project that I could into a video project. Even if my teachers were like, I have no idea how you're gonna make this a video project. Middle school and high school then for me were very much defined by wanting to make videos all the time, and storytelling in particular. French, obviously, in high school. I continued to study it into college, and I never made it to Europe until after my junior year of college. I couldn't afford to go. My family didn't travel. We made it to Seattle a few times. I have some memories of Seattle as a kid, but really we never even crossed the mountains from Eastern Washington into Seattle. If you didn't know that, and welcome to the channel if you're new, I'm from Washington State originally, but not the part anybody thinks about. I loved telling stories, and fiction was this part of my brain that I always had going. I would escape into these stories that I would create. I had a notebook, I wish I could find it, of my earliest stories when I was in 4th, 5th grade about dwarves and elves and who knows what all. I produced my first play when I was in 1st or 2nd grade. It's hilarious, it's really cute. Of course I was the hero with my magic sword and my cape and the most amazing sweatshirt, sweatpant combo. Fantasy, storytelling, it was all in there even before I got to the video making portion of my life. And then it just stuck with me for a long time. And what I didn't realize as a kid, and what it took me so long to come to realize as an adult, was that storytelling was a form of escape for me. Like we all escape into entertainment, fantasy in particular was something that empowered me. I could put myself in the place of a character that I could create who was interesting and funny, powerful, who could overcome the odds, who could rise above all the adversity that they faced. Because I had a really hard time recognizing as a child, as we all do, the adversity that I was born into. It was the same thing with France. There are interviews, and I think in a couple of my books I've even said that I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's because I read Tintin books as a kid and that gave me a sense of adventure. I don't know if Tintin ever actually went to France. I think that's just a silly thing that I made up along the way because I did like Tintin as a kid. I did want to see the world. I loved the most interesting man in the world, Dos Equis commercials. I thought that'd be so cool if I was that guy. I want to be interesting. I want to have an interesting life. And somehow France got into that mix. But France is an escape as well. It was a place that I can imagine moving to that was as far away from my family, as far away from my home as kid me could possibly conceive. If you're new to my channel, a lot of you have found already the video that I made about my mom and my relationship with her and why I cut her off completely about 5 years ago. I've been in therapy for about 6 years. It was part of the process of getting into it, and a lot of revelations that came out over the course of years. The short form version of it would be that, unfortunately, I was neglected as a kid. There were a lot of signs of this, a lot of red flags. I talked about having migraines my entire childhood. I don't have any memories of childhood without getting 3 migraines a week, 4 migraines a week. We finally went and saw a neurologist when I was in high school. Who knows why we didn't do that sooner? The neurologist didn't come up with any solutions for me in that, and now when I read the literature, I recognize, oh, these are signs of childhood abuse. And I know a lot of people have asked the question of like, well, you've cut off your mom, but you still have a relationship with your dad. How does that work? It's complicated, as all these things are, and it's something that I'll get into at some point. But the major difference there is that my mom is not capable of change, as far as I've ever seen in my entire life. And my dad is, and he's making changes and he's making real efforts. And at the end of the day, that's kind of all that matters. The thing is that I didn't know as a kid that I needed to escape. As children, you know, we have a very, very real need for security. We have a very real need to feel loved, to feel safe, to have a home. And our parents ideally are the people that provide that for us. Obviously, there are a lot of us who do not get that from our parents for different reasons. The thing is that it doesn't really necessarily matter for how your brain is wiring itself when you are an infant. And in my case, when you read in the trauma, if you want to read, there's a really good book about this. I think I have it on my shelf here somewhere. The Body Keeps the Score. Highly recommended. When I got to the part of this book, when he's getting into the trauma study, and the deeper in the barrel it gets, they start with the Vietnam War, PTSD, the actual beginning of the defining of PTSD. And then they're like, oh crap, adults that never go to war show signs of this. And oh my gosh, so do children. And oh my gosh. And they just kind of keep going deeper and deeper into the well of like, wow, trauma. It has a whole lot of different faces, shapes, and sizes. When they finally got to the stuff that I went through as a kid, there was a good chapter and a half, 2 chapters, incredibly difficult to read, to the point that I just felt, I pretty much had panic attacks and entered into this like rage-fueled, overstimulated fugue state where I just was walking around the streets of Paris. I just kind of completely fell apart. It's part of the journey. And one of the things that has stood out with me the most from this book is the only way out is through. It's one of the reasons why I've found therapy to be so incredibly valuable and why I have made myself read books like this despite the pain that they have put me through, because the only way for me to heal is to directly engage with all of it and to go back through it by actively engaging with it. It sucks. It's not fun, but it has illuminated a lot about my life and how I ended up here. And the fact of the matter is that those escapes that I had as a kid, the things that helped me to cope with the fact that I wasn't getting what I needed, that I was in constant pain, that I was in constant need, that maybe I was actually being starved occasionally. We haven't really dug into that fully yet either. But storytelling and this idea of France were 2 things for me that kept me going. They kept me motivated. They kept me going to school. They kept me out of trouble. I would spend my afternoons after school editing videos. Like I would go to the computer lab. I was a little bit of a thorn in the side of Mr. Winchell, my multimedia teacher, who thank God did not kick me out of his class despite a number of hilarious but genuinely challenging situations that I put him in. Being able to go and just sit in a computer lab and avoid going home as long as possible, getting out first thing in the morning and going straight to school before the day really got started, all those things helped to keep me safe, among other things. But what is amazing to me in this last week is to see how those 2 things have actually reconverged in a way that is, I think, truly beautiful and really, I feel really, really lucky. I'm partially making this video because a lot of people have found me recently through some of my most recent videos that have done very well. And I want to make sure to bring you up to speed, but it's also because like I want to thank everybody that's been along for the long ride. Like this has been a very, very long ride to get here. I've been actively vlogging on YouTube for almost a decade. I started vlogging daily in the middle of June 2016, so that marks 9 years here in a couple of weeks, when I decided I was going to take YouTube seriously. And man, was I terrible at it. I'm so grateful that I did it. I had a bunch of projects up that I hoped would succeed. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna capture all of this on camera. I was really inspired by Casey Neistat, as so many of us were. And I just wanted to dive in and make video a real regular part of my life again, because there had been a lot of tumult and I hadn't really made videos for a while. All of that failed. And even as I moved to France and then went bankrupt and completely started over from scratch, from negative, I was deep in the hole, and I'm so lucky that I had this tiny little apartment that I could move into, because without this, I would not have been able to start my life over here. I got here because of my love of France and my desire to get here and make it stick, my love of Paris specifically, and my desire to build a life here, and because of storytelling, because of the videos that I was making. And at the time, that wasn't like, I put that in my visa application that I was making videos. I applied more on the strength of my books. But at the end of the day, it's also what kind of saved my bacon when they were reevaluating whether or not to keep me. And they saw, oh, he's making videos about the Louvre and how to use the metro and all these things, and people seem to be watching them. Okay, let's keep him here and see what happens. All the challenges of like dealing with the French government, building a business here, having them try to tear me apart, putting writing on the back burner because YouTube became the thing that actually ended up paying the bills. My patrons who started coming on board in 2016, 10 of whom are still with me today, which is insane. It becoming my full-time job in 2018, still struggling through everything just to make ends meet. All the way till this week when, like I said, on Monday, I got an invitation to go tour the Élysée, the presidential palace, which like nobody goes to. This is one of the first things I've ever gotten to do that Lindsay hasn't already done. She was actually very jealous, which I actually take that as like that's the actual gold star out of this whole thing. I finally made Lindsay jealous. We'll see what she says in the comments below. But like you get to go in on the weekend a year that the Journée de Patrimoine are up. So it's like a day that all government buildings are open across France over the weekend. And then they do some like educational groups that go in. It turns out those student groups have a 3-year waiting list right now. I got to go in, and at the end of it, I was like, is there any chance I could ever interview the president for like Instagram? But with more confidence than that, and they seem to be open to it, which is wild. Like from basically poverty and making videos on a borrowed VHS camcorder with my friends to making the footage you're seeing now in the presidential palace.
Speaking of crazy experiences, thanks to Jani becoming one of my oldest patrons who's made this possible. It is my patron producer in the day. Honestly, I would not be standing in the presidential palace today if it was not for my patrons. They sound in here. It's amazing. This place holds down.
It's this crazy combination of my love of making videos, telling stories, the fortune that I have that I'm so proud of myself for being brave enough, or maybe I was just desperate and reckless enough that I shared my life heading into the darkest period of my life. Like I was in a very, very, very dark place, and vlogging daily specifically saved my life. It gave me a lifeline to the outside world. It helped me to connect with people who gave a shit, some of whom I'm about to tell you about here in a minute, but it meant a lot to me. I honestly wouldn't be here without it. So I went to the presidential palace, I crossed 100,000 subscribers like a day later, and then a couple days later, we taught this masterclass here about everything we've learned last year, because Paris, my.pocket has also gained over 100,000 followers total across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And we just wanted to share how we've done that and how we're growing, how we understand social media, and how all the best practices that I've known that I didn't put to practice with my vlog forever. And I've self-sabotaged so much over the years. We were like, okay, I got out of my own way. We built this separate brand, and here's how we did it. And the ability to go and teach other people how to hopefully succeed in this way is just such a gift. I want there to be a vibrant ecosystem among the people that I really love and respect, and that I want to succeed here with me. So the thing was that Jody mentioned that she went back and watched the 50K subscriber video, which was just over 4 years ago. And if you don't know, when you get to 100,000 subscribers, YouTube will give you a silver play button. It's a plaque. And at that point is when you start to exist in YouTube's eyes. It seemed like I was never gonna get to 100,000 subscribers, right? Like I'd been vlogging daily. I'd made basically, I'm sure well over 1,000 vlogs by the time I got to this in 2021. It was 50,000 subscribers, and I was so grateful. So grateful, even though, I mean, the video, it's borderline unwatchable. I wouldn't argue that you should go back and watch it because I did, and wow, I can see why I grew so slowly. Traditionally, every year I have champagne bottles for my goals, and the champagne bottle I had for that year was to cross 50,000 subscribers. And I thought about giving it away to my patrons. I actually offered it to my patrons. It's like, what should I do? And they pushed back. They said, you should keep that. I decided to make my own play button. I made a cork play button, right? Which is fun. I like making stuff. The reason I bring this up, and the reason I want to tell this story is because it's been quite a journey. And this video is very much for the people that have been watching me for years and my patrons who are the ones that made it possible for me to do this professionally. Before any of the other money came in, before any sponsors, before selling my guide became a real thing, they're the ones that supported me, that believed in me, that saw something in me that my own flesh and blood, that my own community, that where I came from never saw in me. I'm so grateful for this, YouTube, vlogging, you, and my patrons, the ability to actually find people who give a crap.
So I just crossed 100,000 subscribers like 2 hours ago, something like that. I was on my way to meet some friends for coffee. I forgot I wanted to get the exact 100,000, like a screenshot of that. I came close. Believe it or not, I actually kind of forgot what was going on for a minute there. But here's the thing, you don't just get your silver play button. Like, they don't just send it to you automatically when you cross 100,000 subscribers. They have to check to make sure that you are eligible as far as like you're not breaking the rules, you're making original content, all that. I get it. YouTube, I've been around for so long. How can you not already know these things? Why have you not checked my eligibility already? And the funny thing is that when you go in to get your YouTube Creator Award, my channel not currently eligible. Your channel is not read. What? No, I gotta wait. Maybe up to 10 days. I have a solution for this.
So instead, I made my own. One of the things I've not been sharing lately has been that I got into 3D printing among a few other little hobbies, and I decided to make my own silver play button. This is version 1.0. This is also the first thing I have printed that I actually designed myself from scratch. I even reproduced the YouTube logo. I love this thing, and I want to give it to today's patron producer, Jani Hukkanen. Now here's the thing, to be fair, I realized there'll probably be some pushback on giving this. I'm actually very proud of this. I'm more proud of this than I should be in making this thing. So instead of give the actual first one that I ever made, which I wrote on the back, when I crossed 100,000 subscribers and when I printed this, I made a duplicate. I made the exact same thing again for Jani. So he's gonna get this duplicate that's like identical. You cannot tell the difference between them. That said, I mentioned that there were 10 patrons that I still have, active patrons who have been with me since 2016. Those 10 patrons since 2016 are also going to get their own silver play button. I've been improving the design. I'm currently printing the next version of this. I have a couple more iterations to make. And I thought initially I was like, I'm just gonna keep printing iterations until I get one that I think is like perfect. And then I realized, you know what? I'm gonna print 10 of them. I'm gonna keep printing, I'm gonna keep refining it, and eventually I'm gonna get to 10. I'm gonna give them to all of those patrons whose names I'm gonna read right now because I'm so grateful they've been with me for so long. And then I will also, to thank my patrons at large, make one more for a random patron and another for the newest patron. If you become a patron after watching this video and you are the newest patron, the day that I finish printing all of these, that last printed one is going to you. But the people that have been with me for so long are Joel Pearson, who is my first, I'm pretty sure he's my first patron. Nimit Malavia, the guy who did the illustrations, all the art on my walls here, still a patron of mine. Joe Longworth, Wayne Fang, Brian Anderson, Matt Rogers, Jeff Beltran, Eric Ramelsberg, Kevin Crane, and Nolan Stam. Those are the OG 10 that are still here. Like, they're still here. Getting close to 9 years, a lot of these guys. And I'm like, I'm way prouder of this than I have any right to be, but I think this is the coolest thing. It's just amazing. I love this. Look, I wanted to make this video as much just to capture this moment in time as anything else, and to encourage anybody out there that's struggling because you have no idea where you're going in life. Maybe you found yourself in a ditch. In 2016, I hoped I was crawling towards the edge of this ditch that I found myself in, but I really couldn't tell. I couldn't see the horizon. It was a really, really difficult time, and it took me years to get out of it. And even as I started getting out of it, and those of you that have watched this whole time could see things getting better, I couldn't see it all the time. I couldn't feel it all the time. I didn't know. I'm so glad that I kept trying, that I kept going, that even though I kept self-sabotaging, even though I kept getting in my own way, I never really quit, despite feeling like it a lot of the time. Wherever it is that you're at, I know the world is really chaotic right now, and I know that times are really hard. And I know it can be easy to look at me right now and think like, well, yeah, easy for you to be happy about things because things seem to be going pretty well for you right now, which thankfully they do seem to be going pretty well for me right now. It was not always like this. I would say that my life has been characterized by pain and sadness for the vast majority of it. And it's only changing now because not only have I worked really hard at trying to create something for myself, but I finally turned my energies inward and I started really investing in myself. Not just through therapy, but through coaching, through better friendships, healthier friendships, cutting out toxic relationships, especially the really cancerous ones. I find myself now in a much, much better place because I started doing everything I could to take care of myself. So if there's anything that I could say beyond thank you in this video, which is the prime thing I want to say, the second would be, please take care of you. Keep after it, wherever you're at. You really have no idea where you're going to end up in 10 years. If you'd asked me if I was going to be walking around in the presidential palace back when I was in high school studying French and not even being able to remember the word for the presidential palace, I probably would have told you, heck yeah, I would have. I had more confidence when I was younger, for sure. At middle school me would have said that. High school me, not so much. Anyway, Jani, this one's on its way to you. All those OG patrons, yours are on your way here soon too. And it's gonna take me a few days to finish printing these. So you have a few days to join Patreon and maybe get your hands on the last one as well. Thank you so much for watching. I've got a lot more France insights for those of you that want to hear more about like all the stuff we talked about in that video about why it's hard to move here. I haven't forgotten you. We'll get to that next. But I really wanted to stop and just make these. Like, this is so cool. I just had to make these. They're so great.